Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock that I think you guys will really enjoy if you have similar tastes in music as me. And today I have a super good one to talk about today that I'm really excited to dive into. It's an album that's really been growing on me that just barely came out this past Friday, so it's out there and available for you guys to pick up or to stream or however you listen to your music. The band is called Dilemma, and the album is The Purpose Paradox. Now, this is a band, they were founded in Amsterdam, Netherlands in 1993, apparently disbanded in 2002, but reformed in 2012. So they've been around the block at least some significant amount of time. Their first album was in 1995 called Imbrocata, which I'm unfamiliar with, but I'm more familiar with kind of the band coming back together and reuniting and their new phase, starting with Random Acts of Liberation, which came out in 2018, which was an album I really enjoyed, and I knew some of the members that were part of the group from other notable modern prog bands, so I was really intrigued, and it really did sit in the style of a lot of those other bands that these members are a part of. You know, think about your Neil Morses, your Spocksbeard, your Dream Theater, your Frost, just heavier tinged modern prog with some really great luscious melodies and great choruses and hooky sounds. That's what you can come to expect here. So just a really class act with some really awesome music that can't be missed for fans of the bands I just mentioned. And they have a little bit of a lineup change for this new album that's out, The Purpose Paradox. On their previous album, they had Declan Burke on vocals and guitar, and apparently he is not part of the group anymore, although he was involved in some of the recording, if I understand correctly, so maybe his influence can be felt a little bit on this record. But their new vocalist is Woodstick, or Jermaine van der Bocht. He's been an impressive vocalist in the scene as well. He's worked with Arjen Lucassen on several occasions on his Arion projects, so just a fantastic vocalist and really has a chance to shine on this release in a big way. I'm really a big fan of his. We've got the other members here. We've got Colin Lejenar on drums, who played with Neil Morse back in the day when Neil Morse kind of had a European touring band with him back in the days of like Question Mark and Soul Scriptura and so forth. We've got Paul Creasy on guitar, we've got Robin Zuderveld on keyboards, and Christopher Gildenlow on bass, another somewhat familiar name there. I believe on their previous album they had a different bass player listed, Eric Vanderlevis. So a little bit of a switch up, but a lot of the same core members. And they also have a couple guests throughout the album, Derek Sherinian doing some keyboards on Allies, and then Mark Letieri doing some guitar on the big epic track at the end. So a lot going on here, a lot of cool members, a lot of fun to be had on this release. It's a concept record, which of course is always a draw for me as a progressive rock fan. Based on their press release here, talking about the concept of the record, the story of The Purpose Paradox revolves around a man named Neon, someone like us in the here and now. During his quest for connection and fulfillment, he finds support from an unconventional guide named Electra. She points out to him that sometimes the things we look for are things that found us first. Will Neon's heart glow again when he discovers the outer light, or does the greed of the corporate machine known as the Hand succeed in extinguishing his inner fire? Can Neon's secrets be deleted, and will he in the end arrive in the comfort zone of Allies in the raw, rainy city he once left behind? So that gives you an idea and a feel for what the concept is for this record. A main character, a narrative that runs throughout, that binds these pieces together and makes it feel like a more cohesive project, which is always what I really love about concept records, and why I continually come back to them is I love how they feel more cohesive because they're bound by this conceptual story or these conceptual ideas, and it makes the album feel more complete and not just a disparate selection of songs that don't really link together in any fashion. So, and like I mentioned before, the biggest, most notable thing about this band to me and about this album is the way that they're able to weave these supremely catchy hooks and vocal-led sections, these big anthemic choruses, with these like furious, fast-paced, almost near prog metal workouts full of impressive proggy keyboards and riffs and just so much going on, crazy time signatures, the whole 9 yards. And I think they balance these two sides really expertly. I think a big big piece of what these modern prog bands do, is the transition between these two different sides of their sound. And I think it reminds me back to some of my favorite stuff from Neil Morse, because I think this is his superpower, that he's able to bring these really catchy hooks and great sections that stick in your brain, these great vocals and harmonies and just beautiful sounding stuff. But then he's able to infuse it with this really cool proggy undercurrent and go into these cool fiddly bits, as he says, and just have these fun proggy workouts that are just a blast to listen to and bring about some of the characteristic of the record in musical form. And I just really love that. So going through the album a bit, since it's a concept album, I think I'm going to just kind of go through each track one by one and give you a brief impression of it. The album starts with Sanctuary, which has some synth atmospheres and some high-octane proggy playing right at the outset. Once the vocals pop in, we get a bit of funky bass undercurrent and a bit of a bouncier feel in the music. Some great riffs and catchy sections. I love the hookier vocal moments. I feel like there's almost a kind of 80s synth aesthetic as well that permeates throughout this record, and this track is no exception to that. And I love the funkiness that they can get into. The bass lines throughout the record from Christopher Gillenlow are just fantastic and really bring a cool groove to the piece that is one of my favorite parts of the record. I just love when they lock into a cool groove that's somewhat funky, somewhat jazzy, somewhat groovy, and it just really grounds the song and provides a really great lifeline to continue through the track with. And of course, at the end of this track, there's a furious, fast-paced proggy workout full of fun and great keyboard and guitar interplay, very Dream Theater-esque in its complexity and excitement. But they don't really go full-on out metal. I mean, it can get heavier. I'd call this like heavy prog, perhaps. But I think they restrain themselves from going full-blown prog metal style in this, which I enjoy and I think is a good move to keep it firmly planted in the melodic prog space. I Am Neon is the second track. Some great fast-paced drumming to start with some crunchy organ sounds. Things slow in their pace as the vocals come in and you get these great 80s keyboards and stabbing guitar chords. I love these hooky vocals throughout this track and throughout the whole record. Just the vocals are one of the highlights. I think Woodstick is just a fantastic singer. He's able to bring about these great hooks that catch your ear, that make these fun to return to, and make it very memorable to your ears. I think it's an incredible job that's done here. And as it continues, this one also gets furiously fast-paced, has some cool rock sections with some blistering guitar solos. Elektra has a great beat to start, some classic rock guitar and organ. Another high-octane track. They keep the energy level high throughout these first three tracks. Some really cool drumming throughout this piece, some great slick vocals and great hooks, some powerhouse instrumental moments with trading solos and a great groove, keeping everything grounded. And then, of course, at the end, there's a furious ramp-up of pretty much a prog metal feel towards the end of it, which isn't unlike kind of the structure of the two songs that preceded it. And I think they weave these things expertly well, these hooky parts, these great vocal moments, these more 80s kind of classic sounds, and then bringing kind of a more modern prog metal feel to some of the instrumental interplay. Thunder is when we finally get a bit of a laid-back ballad piece, which is a really cool respite amongst the crazy proggy bits that have come before and come after it. And once again, the vocals are really the shining moment here. Maybe this can veer almost into kind of like 80s hair ballad feel to it, but I think it's grounded in really great emotional feel, and it's really fantastically done with some great instrumental build-ups and some really cool keyboard and guitar solos. So definitely a highlight and one of the more catchier tracks, a hook that stays with you and that could, in a better world, become like a good hit from this album. I think it's a really great piece. Allies, we get back to the big synths and rock beats, another high energy track. I really love when the bass and drums lock into a great groove. It's really fun. This is the one, like I mentioned, that has Derek Sherinian, so there's a really expressive solo from him with really crazy time signature shifts and all of that kind of stuff, really off-kilter prog vibes going on in this piece. We get a couple shorter tracks here before we get to the big epic. Not Enough Now is just a cool rock song with a really catchy chorus, some slinky bass lines, and a bluesy guitar solo towards the end. Glow has some smoother feels to it. I'm almost reminded of something like Toto, maybe a bit of an AOR feel, some really cool keyboard playing. Not quite as heavy and propulsive as some of these other tracks, but we do get a pretty killer screaming guitar solo towards the end of the track. Cities is an interesting, different feel as well. I really appreciate this one because it has a bit of almost an electronica feel at the start with some great thoughtful vocals. Nice change of pace from the more rock-oriented stuff that you hear throughout the album. But it's really fun, a really emotive guitar solo. Great satisfying high point towards the end with this great epic vocal refrain. This is one of the more epic moments of the record, I think, and we get some cool dreamy soundscapes that lead us into the big 15-plus minute epic called Outer Light, where you get a big dramatic opening, proggy keyboards take center stage, get some furious riffage in a prog metal vein with some 80s keyboard stabs, some great funky bass comes in with some great groovy drums, and Woodstick's more ethereal style vocals come into the next section, and it just continues to build from there. We get a cool instrumental feel with darker, more sinister undertones, perhaps some great keyboard soloing. There's sections that get a bit more atmospheric and dreamy, builds fantastically with some great drumming and stellar vocal moments. We have moments that almost remind me of like those instrumental sections of like Dream Theater's Octavarium. Some crazy blistering guitar soloing, some insane proggy backbeats. One of my favorite sections is about 10 minutes into the record where they just really go all out in the instrumental world in this proggy landscape. I just love it. Then it gets a bit more laid back, some pleasant moments with acoustic guitars and sublime keys with Woodstick's vocalizations, and we end with some really great vocals and big swelling instrumentation. Just a really exciting ending to the piece, and it's just a fantastic record. Everybody has highlights throughout the record. I didn't mention him enough by name, but Colin's drums on this record are just next level fantastic. It's one of the highlights. I love just the whole bass and drums aesthetic. They really lock into some great grooves together and play fantastically. Woodstick's vocals are just stellar. Robin's keyboards are just really exciting and fresh, have a lot of different sounds, some 80s style feel, which I really like into it, but also just some really great workouts. And the guitar playing by Paul Creasy is just fantastic as well. Just some blistering solos, gets into a bluesy feel at times, but it's just a really fantastic performance from him all the way through. So it's fun when you get 5 just brilliant musicians all working together in tandem, all of them having highlights left and right and one after the other, and a great concept to bind it all together. This is really a can't miss album if you're a fan of Frost, Neil Morse Band, Dream Theater, all of those exciting modern prog bands that bring some energy and some freshness into the music, but also don't sacrifice great catchy vocal hooks and just bring a lot of great proggy instrumentation and virtuosity to the mix. And it just makes for a fantastic album of songs. You could argue different little nitpicks. Is it a bit long? Are there a couple tracks that kind of sound a bit samey and don't separate themselves from the pack enough? I could make those arguments, but every song has something to grab my ear and attention, and I really just love when the band locks into a groove and finds their place in a song, and it's just a fantastic feel. There's plenty of progginess all throughout. There's plenty of catchy vocal moments to keep me happy and entertained, and so this is an A-plus album. I'm really excited to let you guys know about it. Hopefully you'll go check it out from this recommendation. It's definitely going to feature on my year-end list of favorite records, and I just keep loving it more and more as I keep listening. So not only is it fantastic and impressive in a first listen, it continues to build and grow as all the best prog albums do. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Hopefully you appreciate this review, and I hope you'll catch me in future episodes. I have a lot of albums on the plate that I want to review. I'm hoping in a couple weeks to do an episode of like several reviews all at once to just kind of clear the slate, let you guys know about a lot of the great albums that have been really impressing me lately, but I haven't had time to do a full dedicated review for. I think that'll be fun. A lot of people appreciate those style videos, so expect that hopefully in not too distant future. And I hope you guys really love the content here, and let me know in the comments any thoughts or impressions you have on this album or anything that I do here on Nathan on Shuffle. So thank you guys so much. You're all the best, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Bye, everybody.